Live tonight from the virtual Bristol Motor Speedway, we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to the 2020 Real Sim Racing Full Throttle Cup Series powered by Boosted. We're happy to have you with us on RaceBot TV and the iRacing Esports Network, where alongside our producer downstairs, our Junior Kakipati, my name is Evan Pizzoco, joined by Justin Prince on the call tonight as we get set for the final race of the round of 16. Darlington, Richmond have come and gone, and JP after tonight will know the 12 drivers that are moving on to the next round of the postseason.
And the past couple races have been very tricky for some of our playoff contenders, several of them having rough races at both Darlington and Richmond. But at a track such as Bristol, it's not a place where you want to really risk your chance for a championship and a risk to go into the round of 12. It's not an easy track. It's a very rhythm-based and technical track that also just so happens to be home to a lot of mayhem, Evan. This is not going to be easy drivers type of track tonight, especially for the drivers in that red box this evening.
And if you take a look at the point splits, you can see the differences from the very top of the board, where Daniel Everhart, with a win, has locked himself into the next round of the postseason. Everybody else, though, still on point. So your top 12 all the way through Daniel Scott, but there are some drivers close by. Joseph Tice, 2 points below the cut line. Kyle Kamer, 4. 13 for Rhett McBride. And again, Jared Mogard still serving week 2 of a 3-week suspension for intentional wrecking from Darlington. Means that he is going to be eliminated from the playoffs. But it is going to come down to points for majority of these drivers. Granted, any of those bottom 3 names, Justin, could go for a win here. That would shuffle everybody else back down. But Bristol is such a unique challenge, not only in real life, but here in the sim as well. We raced back here in the spring. We had a 200-lap race, same as this evening. It had 10 different incidents, 50 laps of caution. So who's not to say we don't do it again here tonight as we do it under the lights?
Yeah, this is still not an easy track, mind you. It's still top dominant track. But here's the thing, this is one of the better fixed setups in a while here for Bristol, first off, where it's not too tight, but not too loose. That being said, though, several drivers have struggled to try and adjust to that balance, where it's not as simple as, okay, let's save the right front, and you'll be okay the rest of the race. With this, there's a lot of give and take on how you drive with it, and some drivers have looped it off turn 4 in official racing on the bottom line especially. It can be a tricky one. It could be also one where we see some early spins early on. That's where a majority of the trouble has been off the restarts and starts here at Bristol this week.
And as well, it's going to be only their second time using a single pit lane version here at Bristol Motor Speedway, so you have to go down the front and the back no matter what. There's a look at qualifying times as things start to slow down. Again, the drivers highlighted in red are your postseason drivers. After this, we get the 12 drivers that move on. Their points will all be reset. You'll get 3 bonus points if you want to race this round, and we'll do it all over again starting at Las Vegas Motor Speedway in 1 week's time. Gary Saxon on track at a late time in queue. He was dealing with some wheel issues, and being a non-playoff driver, Justin, probably one of the fastest non-playoff competitors in the field in Saxon. At both Darlington and Richmond, drivers were complaining about lapped cars and non-playoff cars getting in the way. If there's any track, it ain't gonna get easier. It's here at Bristol.
Yeah, there's been several times I've seen personally, actually, while racing at this track this week, where it's been nearly impossible to pass some of the traffic. You want that traffic off the top line if you're the lead cars tonight. If they're side by side, that's a recipe for disaster, especially for incidents. That's been a mainstay as we get ready to take a look at who will get the track position, though, tonight.
And we talk about the spoilers. How about it is Agnel Phillip on pole position for this one of 14.627. Going to bring us to the green flag, could be accompanied by the number 44 of Michael Lariah in position number 2. Brian Chambliss, Andrew Farinaj will double up row 2 for 3rd and 4th position, ahead of Joseph Tice in 5th and Grant Davis in position 6. Matt Mara there for the next non-playoff competitor starts in 7th spot. Rhett McBride is 8th. 8th, Kyle Trudell 9th, and Dane Cruz your top 10.
Adam Benefield starts at 11 tonight for Steel Horse Racing, just a tenth of a second off the pole. That's how tight it was in qualifying, with Kyle Kammerer alongside in the box crush car. Eric Stanford 13th with Gary Sexton 14th. We see him tap the wall in his second lap with Thomas George and Ross Kittle behind him. 15th and 16th. Rounded top 20, Jeremy E. Miller back in the car. And 17th with Sam Nieto, David Washington, Sean Catalyst looking for a bit more luck compared to Richmond.
And he'll be second to last of those in Q. Tom Moreno is way off at his Q lap, but it'll put him 21st. The rest will be provisionals and some playoff drivers down there. Dylan Jones, 22nd. Daniel Eberhardt starting 23rd. And then also Daniel Scott going to be in the number 27 spot. Those are all your playoff drivers at the back of the grid, along with everybody else. Final row, we'll see Mosier Valderrama 29th and 30th. A look top to bottom at your full field here from Bristol Motor Speedway. Let's talk a little bit more about Thunder Valley. Justin, of course, we know known as the world's fastest half mile, but it is the banking, I think, more so than the tightness of the racetrack that really makes Bristol what it is. And I kind of alluded to it, talking about how you can't get away from cars, so lap traffic going to be a big issue tonight. But I mean, even in the sim, 200 laps, that's still a long way to go.
Yes, it absolutely is. A one-stopper on fuel, at least. You can go about 150 on the tank. But when talking about that specific banking, about up to 30 degrees of banking around this racetrack, lots of speed carried around, or you go up to 130 miles an hour at the end of the straights in some cases, all the way quickly to around 90 plus in the middle of the corners, back on the gas. It's one where if you struggle to get that exact pattern down of throttle, brake at your right mark, let it roll, back to the gas, half throttle, full throttle, you're going to have a very bad time when it comes to this track tonight.
And something else, as we mentioned every single week, if you don't know who the playoff drivers are, remember they will be in red as opposed to gray at the top of your screen, but they also have that boosted Dot Club pink on all their cars. It'll be on the splitter, the windshield, and the spoiler, just in case anybody is wondering kind of who's in what position. So pace car going to be down at in this time as we get set to go racing from Bristol Motor Speedway. The 94 going to be in control. Ken Agnell Phillip be the second driver to play spoiler this round. Malik Ray, who won here in the spring, won the first race up this round and kept the playoff driver out of that golden ticket spot into the round of 12. We're happy that you're with us at a Monday night, as always, Race Spot TV and the iRacing Esports Network. Let's go racing from Bristol.
And already
and
a car
spin now.
losing it.
This is a 25 car sideways. I think that was McClendon maybe who got a little bit loose. We'll see. And now a caution right off of the get-go in this one. And it proves to be Brian Chambliss. And that is a parking lot.
Well, I did say ready on your mark between amongst ourselves right before that. The mark may or may not have also been who spins out on lap 2, because if you're on the bottom line on fresh tires, right in the middle line, with the fixed set you're likely spinning at that time, Chambliss corrects up and a Benefield collects several drivers who needed good runs tonight. Disaster if you're a playoff driver who was in the mid-pack.
And I can't really say we're surprised that the chaos comes early, but maybe a little bit surprised that it happens at a solo spin. And you can see up the road there, it was Chambliss who got sideways. And kind of the cardinal rule is if you get sideways, you can try to lock it down. Granted, there's not a lot of places to go, but yeah, Adam Benefield gets obliterated. Thomas George involved in the incident. I think David Washington, as you mentioned, Justin, as well. I mean, those are all drivers who need good runs here. Of course, especially for David Washington, he's kind of one of those drivers closest to that cut.
Yeah, that is disastrous for a lot of these cars. And I hate to say it, this has been a trend throughout official racing this week where it's been difficult once the race gets underway to really actually get a rhythm down. The reason being, of course, It's so top dominant where if you're on the bottom, you're likely spinning unless you really back it on down and then find a hole and get yourself up to the said top line, or else you're going backwards. If you push too hard, you're likely doing exactly that. Unfortunately, that was the case there with Chambliss and company for a massive parking lot to start.
Kyle Kamer saying check out his onboard for that one. So let's see maybe if we can get a look from downstairs on board with the 8. That is one of your playoff drivers, and let's see what he saw.
Holy.
I mean, barely, what, a car length and a half maybe on the inside of the racetrack. If he guessed high, definitely would have been involved in an incident because he Benefield right in front of him gets taken out, and Kyle Kamer said, yikes, check out my in-car, and that was the view from the 8 machine. He'll actually stand to benefit from that. He picks up a couple of spots, and he'll restart in the 10th position. Also, Brian Chambliss claiming responsibility for an early bit of chaos here at Bristol Motor Speedway. Means that he will be at the end of the longest line when we go back green.
And at least half the field already had to pit for damage repair. That's how much was all checked up there, as Brian Chambliss claims the caution with several dozen Cs. Already several drivers, 13 positions lost for those, some of them involved in the incident, while others just rose up 20 plus. That's what it takes when, or why it's important rather, to have awareness of what's happening. You don't have much time to react here at Bristol and get on the brakes. If you don't react in time, you're likely going to have a demolished race car.
Doubled up and ready to go here from Bristol Motor Speedway as this one looks to carry on. Also important to note as well that you can see all the cars up front relatively okay. A lot of drivers not hitting the mark in queue or even opting not to qualify. Those drivers towards the back of the pack were the ones that ended up with some issues in this race. So let's try it again. Pace car going to be down and in. Now Agado Phillip, total control of the restart. Green flag flies. Let's try it again with 7 laps down.
Like a couple cars actually jumped to the apron saying, you know what, I want to get out of the way before things get crazy this time. But one of the main advantages as the control car here, Evan, you're able to get a nice, decent buffer of a couple car lanes, get yourself all the way to the top by turn 1 and 2, and don't have to fight, for example, like the 2 machine, like he's getting freight trained by one of the cars who was able to stop from that crash in Daniel Eberhardt.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you got all these different situations, but it looks like drivers, at least this attempt, single file for the most part. There's the battle as Eberhardt's to the inside of the 7. He'll get around Trudell, now pull up alongside Matt Mara. It looks like the outside line going to be the preferred one early, but it's good enough down low. How about Eberhardt? He mentioned that throwback car did not get the run that he felt like it deserved at Darlington a couple of weeks back, kept it on the car. And at Richmond, he went to victory lane just last week for the 4th time of the year. So he right now will be the points leader. When things reset for the round of 12, he wants even more as he's going for a race win tonight, 23rd to 8th. Granted, did have the benefit of avoiding the incident, but what a remarkable start, only 12 laps in.
Yeah, and that's, of course, partly on how aware he was on what was happening up in the racetrack, but 2, you see he's trying the bottom line, so are a couple others. The reason being some drivers put in a ton of preparation in practice tonight on trying to run the bottom. More drivers have talked about more towards the middle top as the tire saving line. But here's the thing. If you think back to last year with the higher downforce, you could go all the way to the bottom. That's where some of the drivers are still trying to get it work. Some I've seen make it work fairly decently, but eventually they normally have migrated up to that middle top.
And you can see that experiment not working right now for Eric Stanford. He had gone to the bottom to try to get around the 5 car of Brett McBride. All it did is open up the outside for Eberhardt. Now, the inside pulls so much into the corner, it opens up that slide job, but you need to have the speed off of the corner, and that's really what he's struggling with now. And there you go, Eberhardt all the way clear. He will squeeze in between him and the number 23 Amara. So Stanford drops 1, and he will fall down to position number 8 for the time being. And not done yet, because now Eberhardt doesn't want to learn from that, as there's the look with Matt Marin tonight using the VR goggles once more. Always cool to get that perspective with him on these Monday nights. And it's chaotic up in front. The 5 and the 24. McBride and Davis may have gone front to back into each other, but Daniel Eberhardt is passing all these cars on the inside like it's nothing. There's another pass, as he is now plus 18 into position 5.
Yeah, he's really found something that's making things work here for him. It's just a matter of making sure he doesn't have more contact or tap the wall too much. As well, it doesn't help when McBride and Davis, they just seem to be struggling on entry. You can go a little deeper, yes, even though it's a lower downforce compared to, say, 2018. Around the Food City logos, for example, is the deepest you can go realistically at either end of the racetrack. But these cars seem to be backing it up almost to the 2018 numbers, and the drivers who are pushing a little bit deeper on the brakes, they're just eating them alive, and then in turn, still building up enough momentum to make them pass. Now, how that factors into those cars in the long run remains to be seen. All well, it's 94. He's just continuing to check out, and he's still using that bottom line once again and trying to make it work for speed.
He's been able to get around Tice, so that's another spot, but for Eberhardt, I should say, in the back of the pack. But for Phillip and company, they try to continue this pull away, and they have caught the back of the field. Jeremy Miller to the garage. He'll be the first DNF in this race, but the next car up the road from Phillip is Brian Chambliss. He's a lap down. The first lead lap car he would catch is Steve Durham. That's still about a quarter set away. 13 seconds behind the race leader. Wouldn't seem like much any given week, but that's basically a lap almost here at Bristol Motor Speedway. So this is going to be a constant thing all night. And if I'm Phillip, listen, I kind of accept the fact that I'm going to lose time right here on these guys. I'm going to have to go to the bottom. Sometimes they'll give me the top. I'm going to lose time as we watch a battle for second and third, as here comes Faridaj on the bottom. It's his. Faridaj to P2 around Michael Araya. Now they're in the same boat, Justin. They're going to lose time, but everybody's going to have to deal with the same thing. Just worry about getting through without an incident.
That's the big key, right? Especially since there's been a couple races I personally called, Evan, where the leader has gotten involved in a crash for the battle for the last spots on the lead lap and gotten severe damage. In one case on Friday on the iRacing Esports Network, there was a recovery drive, but with 20 RPMs down for Tucker Minner in NIS competition. You don't want to rely upon a chance for a recovery drive, so to speak. You want to keep yourself at the front all race at a track such as Bristol. You don't want to have to fight, say, such as this if you're Matt Marin with Grant Davis, and in turn, hope for lap traffic to give you the amount of space you need to be able to keep momentum. If not, the traffic can be used as a pick by the cars in front behind you.
Look at this on board through the chaos. That's on board with Mara looking up the road. That's the number 24 to Grant Davis. Morano just caught the fence that time at a turn 4. So the number 42 machine slow, but doing his job, and that is staying out of the way and allowing these race leaders to use the bottom of the racetrack to race on through. Also, shortly after we saw Faridaj make a pass for second, we get a second look at what happened here now. He was able to make that pass right there onto Michael Laraya. So Laraya is going to drop 2 spots in about 5 laps. This time Eberhardt using the high side to get up and around, and he is now incredibly in third, but a second off for the race leader, Justin, but by a significant margin. Daniel Eberhardt is the fastest car on track.
Yeah, they've been able to really manage the fall off really well here. The fall off usually equalizes out to about the 16.1s. We're about halfway to that mark in the 15.5s. It's the best I've seen some of these drivers actually drive on the bottom of the racetrack all week in any sort of open or fixed setting. And Faridaj is still the best of the best at it. It helps that he's been most comfortable and just took away the top to try and make the pass.
He's going to make that move, get up and around, so he is on the move, high side. How about Andrew Faridaj? Around the 94, a new race leader, working lap number 35 at Bristol. He has looked awfully good, but again, getting to this point, was not, or I mean, was fast, but it was not fastest. That was Eberhard. Granted, he has 0.8 of a second to deal with, but I think that this isn't going to be a race where we have one car pull away. These three up front, Agadil, Phillip, has kind of been a little bit quiet. Justin, of course, for those who may not be that familiar with the driver of the number 94 machine, he's in a position where has only made so many starts so far this season. So obviously it isn't going to be up there and in the same positions as everybody else fighting for points and whatnot. But he has been impressive in his 6 starts, a top 5, 2 top 10s, looking for a first RSR win. I know Friedrich and Eberhard going to make it awfully difficult on him, but been real impressed out of what I've seen out of the 94. Could really turn into a good full-time run in 2021 as Eberhard trying to get around Cato.
Yeah, he was really strong at Richmond as well, but I think he again knows these are playoff drivers racing around him. And he doesn't want to, of course, factor into their fights for positions. This one, though, Lariah, of course, we've seen him have to let by Eberhard after being slowed down the front stretch. I think, again, just the preferences are coming in. Eberhard knows he can squeeze down and get better momentum off the corner to build some time up. If Lariah can't get clear by Apex for a pass on the bottom side, in turn, he ends up losing that momentum and it ends up burning his tires up just a little bit more. So, its preference is here with how it's being taken. Eberhard now back into his happy spot on the high side. Friedrich, he's just calm, cool, and collected on the bottom side like it was last year here.
Some drivers as well with some issues. I saw Trevor Valderrama disconnect from the session. He reconnected. He's a couple of laps down. Also, Brian Chambliss, who was involved in that early incident, back down pit road, so his night may be ending. Bristol is a tough one. That's why they call it the last great Coliseum, is you really have to work hard to get around this place. And again, it's not the 500 laps that you saw in the Bristol night race over the weekend, but 200 laps is still a very healthy number here, and so we're almost at 1/4 distance so far still, with just that one caution flag that has happened to this point. But just watching the intervals, things have actually settled down a little bit. Daniel Eberhard had gotten, you can see the traffic here, Gary Sexton with no front end left on that machine. Is still a lead lap car, but down into 15th position. You got Dylan Jones trying to work him over. Jones, really haven't mentioned him yet tonight, Justin, but is in not a great position, down in 21st spot. He would want to be doing better. I mean, this is a place that can beat you up no matter, how good you are on any given week.
Yeah, and this is also a track, mind you, too, as just got the cross and a huge shot to Sexton. Looking like he might be okay-ish for now, despite the no front clip. This is a track that brings out talent out of drivers you normally don't expect, like we've seen with Phillip so far. Flat Out Motorsports, they're 1-2-4 in practice as a group as well. So a lot of drivers just seem to like this, not just the package, but just the way if you focus enough on a long enough run, it's just the simple pattern of gas, brake, coast, half gas, about full gas right about here. Once you get into that pattern, you're usually flying here. And that's why it's one of my favorite tracks as a personal opinion as a driver, and that's why I think some of these drivers are just doing so well that we normally have not seen in some cases up towards the front, except for spot point races here and there.
And this is a racetrack as well that I feel like it has got to be one of the best to watch in person. And it's not just because, you can see the whole track from basically anywhere you're sitting, but I mean, there's so many different battles that we could look at any given point. And I think when you're sitting in the stands, that's something that you could really notice and monitor. And also monitoring what has been a slide for Daniel Eberhard. I had just touched on it, that he had gotten to within 0.8 of the race leader and then fallen back, but just that it has fallen way off. Now 4.1 seconds off of the race lead. It has actually gotten passed back by both Michael Lariah for third and Joseph Tice for fourth. So Eberhard back down to P5. I'm not seeing any damage on that car. That doesn't mean that he may not have gotten into somebody, but Daniel Eberhard, I don't know if he tore it up that much, blazing through the field, but I mean, he is way off from where he was 10 laps ago.
Yeah, that's the thing. The tires is the massive concern here. If you push too hard, or even just tap the wall enough to where it curls in your quarter panel, you're likely losing that right rear tire and you're going to be sliding all over the circuit. In the case of Everhart, I think it's just trying to back it on down and make sure he doesn't lose grip on his tires. He's running about 16 flats to 16 threes. The fastest cars have now migrated to about that era than Lariah in clean space. So I think just the tire heat's starting to come into play with this being one of the longer runs for many of these cars this week in a fixed set.
And he's, still here. The next car to get up on him would be Kyle Trudell. That's about a 2-second difference. But yeah, last lap best one was Michael Lariah. He went down a 15.7. Everhart with a 16.4. It is a substantial difference in speed across the field. So that is, we'll see kind of how that plays out. Here's a replay. Michael Mosier, number 54 car, the 5 of McBride on his inside. And as he works on the outside of the racetrack, looks like maybe some connection issues for the 54 worrying some of the other drivers. He's down pit road right now. Let's see, maybe he lost it injured or something.
Yeah.
We saw that blip. I don't think he lost power, though. I think it was just some sort of a connection problem because he's getting tires. But Mosier's going to get back out there, but I think it just was something that scared the cars behind him. Seeing that smoke like that, you always get worried as to what could be going on.
Now here's the thing though, Evan, when it comes to Bristol this week, there's not a lot of tape on the fixed set for full clarification, but if you end up even getting a small bit of right front damage, it kicks up your oil temps by about 20 degrees. In some cases, your water temps and pressures will spike by up to 30, 40 degrees in percent. So all that, any type of damage is absolutely going to hurt you and potentially force you to have to clutch and coast. So it's not just as simple as, okay, I'll get away with some type of damage like some drivers have in the past here at Bristol. You damage this car enough, you're potentially popping the motor if you push too hard.
The battle's on for P2. Agno Phillips got it. Michael Lariah wants it. You're on board with him, watching him hunt him down. Where does he go? Phillip kind of dead middle of the road right now. Doesn't want to give the 44 machine either lane. You could give him the outside, and if he gets those to you on exit, it's done. If you give him the bottom, he could go for the slide job. Of course, when the bottom line was the strong line here at Bristol, that's when the bump and run was king, and that's what made Bristol Bristol in the late 90s, early 2000s. But as the track has changed over the years, it's moved up. You've had to get a little bit more creative to make your passes, and I think Lariah is better than Phillip right now. Most important to note that the longer they fight, the further away Andrew Friedage is going to get. I said no more than, 10 minutes ago that this was not going to be a race, Justin, where somebody runs away, and now Andrew Friedage is nearly 3 seconds up the road. But the longer this goes on, the further he's going to get away. The lack of, anything holding up the 88 has helped as well. He hasn't had to fight much. He's been able to get the spots and take off, whereas these two cars have kind of got back and forth a little bit.
Yeah, they have here and there, but there's a couple ways you can do it. Yes, you can try and get to the inside line and take it there, but the thing is, these cars just prefer the bottom because of the way the tire saving go. So it goes to where it's almost where, at least how I would attack it, is go up towards the top, try and get it to where you get to the quarter panel of the car below you, and stick it on corner exit so you can carry that momentum and get the pass done by the end of the straightaway. It's not an easy maneuver. It's one where if you time it up wrong, you're smacking the wall or burning up your tires. But it's one where if you get it to stick right, you're likely going to make that pass and run away.
Got a lot more conversation on the radio right now. Sam Nieto, I don't think, is very happy with Kyle Trudell, maybe. Nieto's barking at somebody as he's enthralled in a battle for 6th on back. The 7 car has P6. That's the all-blue machine up the road to Trudell, who's actually going to go to the inside and try to get around lap traffic. Gary Sexton here, but can't clear. And the 13 going to hold to the outside, as is his right. So I don't know who Sam Nieto is upset about. Maybe he feels like the 7 is holding him up. But either way, you're on the front of the 2. Nobody's happy. That's pretty typical Bristol. We're working lap number 71 of 200. This race, 1 yellow so far, flying by.
It's been one of the cleanest Bristol races we've seen in a while, and I think, again, it just partly is, this is a strong setup. It doesn't really bottom out when it goes into the middle of the corner, especially compared to some of the past fixed setups, and it rotates very well. As long as you're confident at this track, you're going to be fast around said track. The fastest drivers are still in the 16 ones to twos, which is at the level of top split drivers, mind you, if you know how to run around this track. The whole top 10 is in that ballpark when they've been in clean space.
And just kind of thinking ahead as well, just to mention, as we see Nieto go to the inside of Throttle here, and he's going to try to get the spot here, that you're hearing the number 75, Justin, as far as what we're working with?
No, in terms of the fuel number specifically, 150, that was in reference to Steve Soa, who had some trouble and is now in the pit lane. Had some right side damage in the 75 and was fairly slow. He might have elected to come back down the pit lane. He's now several laps down from damage. But expecting drivers, if this run continues, maybe go halfway, but there's the risk of there's massive tire differences on this track. You're going to see people run each other over. And in that case, that may influence drivers of saying, I'm going to try and go as long as I can to the max window, about 150.
And that's all going to determine based on, how well they've been conserving their tires. This battle for second still going on. Agnew Phillips, the 94. Michael Arias, the 44. And to the outside, maybe this is where it happens. Phillip trying to go low side around lap traffic. Looks like he'll be okay for the time being. But we saw Eberhardt really struggle here with the tires. Maybe he's somebody who wants to come down to the pit lane a little bit earlier, Justin. But you talk about that difference in speed as Loraya now on the outside. And it looks like he's going to get the pass done for second. Is because that fuel window is so open. I mean, you could pit now and go to the end of the race. You could pit in 80 laps at the end of the current fuel run and get to the end of the race. Because it's such a big window, that period of time in which we're going to have drivers coming down and getting out on fresh tires is going to be that much longer. I think that brings up the chance that we have an incident with somebody faster, trying to get through traffic, being a little bit impatient, and running somebody over. Also, because it is the single pit road Bristol, you have to drive through both the front and the back pit road. You don't just go through the one where your pit stall is located. So because of that, your pit stop time is amplified by that much more. So you're going to lose multiple laps pitting under green, which of course is going to be a concern, and it might scare some drivers into staying out a little bit longer.
Traffic really holding up this battle. You've seen with Phil be able to just pounce on by as Cato couldn't get out of the way there. But that's why there are drivers who have been so timid and even daring take two tire stops, or green flag stops, as you rather say, because you lose 2 laps with that long pit delta. If any incidents happen, you're out of the race likely for the rest of the night, unless it starts to become cautions, precautions. So in other words, I'm expecting a lot of drivers to try and stretch it. Some of the drivers who feel confident maybe that they at least confidence in the field itself and their ability to stay clean may impact drivers who are going halfway at about the midway point of this race. It's just a matter of feeling things out and seeing, okay, is it chaotic right now? Are there drivers shouting on the radio? Are there drivers bouncing off each other on the walls? So far, for the most part, everyone's been giving each other space. No one's been really squeezing one another. No one's been really pushing overly aggressively. They've just been picking their spots and being very tactical about how they attack this traffic.
And it's kind of dealer's choice as well. I mean, there is no single correct call when it comes to that strategy. There is no single incorrect call. It kind of all comes down to what you feel like is going to be the best decision. And, you'll see if it works out or not. In the end, I love races when they have that wide open strategy. A lot of the time, tires have been a conversation. The 3-set, grouping that you have in all Full Throttle Cup Series events, not going to be a concern here. Unless we get a bunch of yellows, and then you might have to be a little bit conservative with it. But tonight, kind of interesting strategy-wise for the opposite one, as that's the 23 up and against the outside wall, Matt Mara, and he is all over the fence now with Kyle Kamer on his inside, but he'll hang on.
I believe they got a little bit of help from one another there. That could have been disastrous, to say the least, because I think Kamer tried to go to the bottom, but Mara tried to go to the bottom as well in all this. Great job for both of them to not jump the respective cars. This is currently about 19 seconds back of the race lead, by the way. These are the first cars on lap down. You don't want to wreck for the lucky dog.
It is an important spot to fight for, but again, you can't wreck for it, because if you do, you won't get it. If anybody involved in an incident doesn't get a lucky dog right now. There are only 10 cars on the lead lap right now, and Cameron and Amara battling for 11th and 12th position of the two drivers in a battle for the first car one lap down. Not going to last long, though, because Rhett McBride is just about to get lapped by Andrew Ferdinand. I'd give it about 5-6 laps or so before the 88 is knocking on the back door of him. But I mean, again, we compare this to what we saw in the spring, Justin. The yellows actually helped more cars stay in the race, and 10 yellows in that race for a quarter of the distance being run under yellow meant that there wasn't long green flag runs like this, meaning that, of course, more cars were in it. That race finished with 14 on the lead lap. We're already under that, and again, the longer we go in this run, the only more so that's going to get stretched out as we get a second look on board with Daniel Eberhardt, who's back up to position 4. Going to go 3 wide in the middle. Donati to Washington up top, and Benefiel on the inside. How's that for a move by Donati? He just passed up Joseph Tice a few laps back.
A lot of those cars are fighting for position. That's why they've been fighting so aggressively, even with the lead traffic. It just takes the right amount of confidence to be able to then be able to go 3 wide, with it not being easy to even go side by side, let alone 3 wide around this racetrack. Still, Joseph Tice now able to get around, and now this is seeing a bunch of other players group up. Nieto and Trudell are now going to have the tough fun part of trying to get around them, as they still are fighting for positions.
It's a big group here, and they cannot get away from one another, and Sam Nieto would rather not have to deal with all of this. It's kind of a battle on top of a battle, but Trudell thinking about going that Everhart's line. 3 wide doesn't do it. Tucks in line, and it's a pretty easy rule of thumb. If the car doesn't have a front bumper, it's probably a lapped car. So that's a good way to kind of tell that both Daniel Scott and Gary Sexton in this battle are lapped cars. So is Cato a little bit further back. I did want to give a shout out to the driver of that number 50 machine. He won at Texas Motor Speedway last week in the RealSimRacing Outlaw Truck Series, a race that went green start to finish. He took home a race win in that one, marking the 6th different race winner in the 6 Outlaw Truck Series races so far this year. Good to have Ross back at RSR competition, and thinking that Fast Forward Esports car going to make a run at the playoffs in 2021. But at least here tonight at Bristol, 4 laps down, 21st position, Steve Soa. A battle for position, actually, right here between these two. Looks like the 75 machine better at the moment. He'll go to the inside and get around.
Remember, he actually took tires, and so Steve did something different here. I'm wondering if he's trying the 2-stop, which is a possibility to try, but not something you usually would see at a type of race such as this because of the chances of caution flags. So right now, he's a couple laps down. But once everyone cycles around, he might be back on the lead lap potentially, and in turn, might be able to be back in the ballgame. The tough part is, he's still a few more laps down since he had to get some of the damage repaired on the back end of the race car. That really bogged him down for several of his services.
Looks like a restart with these 4 cars all side by side. Nieto, a little bit of a gutsy move across the nose of Washington, who hasn't been very happy with how the last couple of weeks have gone for him. And it involved in an incident earlier tonight. Was only 13 points ahead of the cut line. Let's kind of check in, though, where all those critical playoff bubble drivers are, because Daniel Scott was the last driver in, and he's in 15th. That's not awful, but again, he was only 2 points ahead of Joseph Tice. Tice running top 5 right now. If I did the math in my head, would probably be in the top 12 as the live point sat. Kyle Kamer running in 11th, also outrunning Daniel Scott. Rhett McBride, a little bit more of a challenge. He is position 10. I don't think he's going to currently pick up enough points to advance to the round of 12, but Daniel Scott is not in a good spot, Justin, and he is on the brink of going 2 laps down. 1 lap down is bad enough, especially because he's the 6th car a lap down. But once you go 2 down, you're basically out of it, and I know Daniel Scott really wanted to make sure that he got everything out of this race here tonight, but it is not looking well for the 26, which would be a real shame because he was one of those drivers that fought it on points, started, almost all the races in the season and really worked hard, making 18 starts at the 22 to get into the postseason here with a win a little bit earlier this year. I think it was at Martinsville. Just tough to see him go, but it's only going to get tougher as we whittle it down to 12, eventually 8, and then 4.
If I was Scott, I'd actually try and pull out of this. Otherwise, this is going to become an absolute disaster. Just diving off the corner to get out of the way of some of those cars. But the battle for second is back on once again, and Lariah again using the bottom to get around. All while Philip is now starting to struggle at the very top of this wall. We've already passed halfway, so the fuel window is open. No one from the lead lap, though, has taken the risk yet of pitting under green.
It just saw Gary Sexton come to the pit lane, but he was a lapped car, so he's getting his service. And you're right, everybody else has been out there. There were a couple of cars, as you mentioned, who pitted on that first yellow. Adam Benefield was down there, David Washington, Dylan Jones, kind of the cars we've been talking about here, 1 to 2 laps down. But nobody on the lead lap has. They've been out there for all now 113 laps. And, for Ninaj, you look at the timing and scoring, 5 seconds up the road from the next closest driver. You'd think it's a walk in the park, but it is just as difficult leading by 5 seconds as it is leading by 5/10 of a second here at Bristol, because the racetrack is not going to open up at all for him.
Sam Nieto over to the radio says he's coming down this upcoming time by, so the pit stops window starting to open up. This, as you mentioned, you have to go the full way around. Not an easy place to even duck down to the lane, because you have to go right from full speed, nearly 45-degree angle down to the pit lane, and get right down to 35 miles an hour. You blip over even a little bit here, that puts your race completely in jeopardy, since it's a 40-second stop and hold if you speed down to the lane under green.
And it is not something that you want to deal with, because, again, you would have to then go down the front and the back pit road just like you would the first time. So that single pit lane here at Bristol, new to iRacing for 2020, can really up the penalty as far as, what's going to hurt you. You don't want to get a drive-through at all. You never really want to be in that position to begin with, but it is not any better as the 90 of Daniel Eberhardt is down pit road. He was running in position number 5. He's in. He's going to go for 4 in fuel.
So a bit of an undercut now in some of these cars, and if he plays this right where he stays out of the traffic, or at least gets enough space to get at full speed, he can pull off a massive undercut on some of these lead cars. He was only about 4 or 5 seconds behind. Just has to be careful here with, you have to be making sure you don't speed in this section or any of the sections, otherwise you're going to have to come back down for yet another penalty.
It's grueling, 35 miles an hour. And I'm looking at it, Justin, that has not moved. He's pretty much right on it. It's so easy to lose focus, to speed a little bit, to kind of lose focus and go under speed. That is a long pit lane time of 53 seconds. That's 4 laps worth of time on pit road. Only 15.8 in the stall, but again, 53.4 to go all the way around. So that's why getting caught out by a yellow right after pitting would be absolutely devastating here at Bristol.
I think it's why we haven't seen drivers like Freenosh or Lariah or Philip try and counter this, is they might be expecting that with this gaggle of cars, for example, starting to smack the wall. That's George.
He's up and on the outside fence. There's the Dottie car now working through traffic. Daniel Eberhardt's been one of the best all night, but right now he's 16th position and 3 laps down. But, look at the speed differential for the fresh tires. He's going to get around Grant Davis next, and it's dangerous. Let's just ride for a minute. I imagine, Justin, this is what the other drivers see when they're racing against me on the sim.
Possibly. I don't think I've raced you yet in an official race to get that full clarification, but we're talking about 2 seconds quicker, essentially, when you're on much fresher tires here. That's a lot of time you can make up, and it's why when it opened back in the wintertime. That was 150 laps. Some drivers would try and go for the full race and try and make it on fuel and tires without popping them. Others would try and split it right up in the middle, and those races actually went green a lot of times. So this is a track, again, where you can see all this absurd strategy. As long as Eberhardt doesn't get a caution that pins him down, they could be all right. Still, though, 9 cars not yet to have any type of service tonight inside the top 10. Benefield, the only driver in the top 10, was set to come down. That was because, well, he's gotten a front clip.
Yeah, Washington was in a couple of laps ago. Matt Mara just got off pit road. Now Thomas George, Steve Durham down pit road. Looks like Eric Stanford going to pit from position 7. So that's the highest running car down this time. But again, he was off of the lead lap. This race could presumably finish with 3 cars on the lead lap. And there is a lot of RealSimRacing Full Throttle Cup Series races to look through over the years. And I don't know if I have the time to do it, but I'm not sure many races have finished with less than 3 cars left on the lead lap, should this one stay green and should Andrew Friedage continue to pace. Again, he's not way faster than everybody else, Justin. 30 laps ago, he was 5 seconds ahead. Right now, he's 5 seconds ahead. He's been consistent. But I think it was that point in the run when that battle for second was going on with some of the lap traffic and as well with tire conservation, which is what the 88 is known for. Those 3 factors kind of created a perfect storm for him to get way out and in front. And Lariah, now comfortably P2 ahead of Agnew Phillip, are going to need a yellow, I think, if they want to get back into this.
Smart cars making some big moves, but you hit it right on the head with the benefits of free launch. And this is a track that rewards all of those factors. You struggle with any of them, you're likely going to be freight train, or you're likely going to be smacking in the wall, or you're one of the cars without a front clip. You need all of that to work your way, otherwise, well, you're not going to have a fun time at Bristol. So as long as you know all those things and, well, know your marks for Bristol, you're in the perfect ballpark to try and compete at a track such as this. By the way, Lariah here on screen hasn't left by some of the drivers with modifieds, even with fresher tires, because even they will be faster. You'll see here in this fight with the 94.
Yeah, I thought he was coming down to the pit lane again. Phillip is for position, and right there, he kind of just drops off as Gary Sexton was coming by. And I thought that he was going through, but instead, it was just to kind of let those cars through. So no yellow, not coming down to the pit lane. Everything's A-okay. Daniel Eberhardt not happy with Matt Mara, I believe, yelling at drivers to use their mirrors. There's Joseph Tice down to the pit lane from position number 4. It's Bristol, guys. There is a lot going on, and now Michael Lariah going to pit from position number 3. So he goes for the undercut. Andrew Friedage, Agnew Phillip, I think they got to respond, Justin. These drivers running, as you mentioned, 2 seconds slower a lap. If they don't come in within 2 laps, then he'll cycle through to the net race lead. Now, I don't think that's a deal breaker for either of these drivers, but I would rather just not see that happen based on how this shakes out. So we'll see, but Phillip and Friedage not coming down pit road. Lariah is getting his 4 tires and fuel.
In fact, Eberhardt actually unlapped himself right there, so now he doesn't have to worry if there's a caution as long as he doesn't get involved with another car. But here's the thing, too, where it's not simple as, okay, I got to come down right now. I got to come down now. For Friedage, if he waits all the way out to the as long as he can on the tires, all the way for the next 10 laps or so, those are going to be much more fresher for obvious reasons. In turn, he's going to be quicker for the end of this race by about a 10th or 2 per lap in clean space. So it all comes to perspective on, okay, do I feel comfortable being the defender or the attacker in the closing stages?
Oh, Friedage, your race leader, is into the outside wall, and he is not happy with Gary Sexton, who got into him. Let's take a look at the replay. Here's on board. You'll see Sexton cross to the inside right there. He got hit on the left rear quarter panel as Sexton tried to split the difference between Friedage and Steve Durham. Right there, just a touch. And Justin, Andrew, one of the most laid-back drivers, but he was hot on the radio. I don't know if I've ever heard him snap like that.
And I don't blame him because, well, that's not something you're expecting to have happen from a driver several laps down, even on fresher tires. And now here's the tough part is, He's got significant back-end damage, especially that quarter panel. So that's a concern now for the rest of the race. If he doesn't get a caution and get some of that repaired, if he elects to do it, he's going to be loose. You already see him bobbing on the corner exit because of how much it's crushed in.
He hasn't lost anything. Either Agnew Phillips fallen off a cliff or he's had his own issues, because in fact that gap has only grown. But again, in the grand scheme of things, Eberhard having already pitted, now up to third, who is outrunning, by the way, Michael Araya, who we talked about some of the undercut, the pit strategy and whatnot, who is down in position number 9 right now, 2 laps off. Eberhard going to actually be the first to cycle back through to the race lead. But I'm not quite sure, Justin, admittedly, why Friedage wants to stay out, because, you know, you're losing time right now. Each lap he stays out is 2 seconds or so he's giving up. Now, he's going to get on the fresh tires at the end, but you need laps to use those fresh tires, and 2 times from now, we're going to be at 50 laps to go. I'm not sure I'd be waiting much longer.
I'm thinking the same thing, but yeah, this is going to be intriguing, because there's only 2 cars on the lead lap, by the way. And this is part of the reason I think he's thinking about this is, if he gets a caution with so many tempers flaring up now, guess what? Everyone else has to take the wave, has to stay on older tires. He can repair the damage, no problem, just has to deal with Phil, and bam, he likely goes away with the checker flag. But if he doesn't get in the next 5 laps or so, he 100% has to go down, or else he's not going to make it on the gas. That's a guarantee.
At this moment in time, there are 2 cars on the lead lap at Bristol, a race that has only been going on, for some 46 minutes now to this point. 2 cars on the lead lap. Look at the intervals. All those cars still on track. They're battling. Right there, Saxon and Durham for 17th and 18th. Barr and Kaczynski for 14th and 15th. 4 laps down and 3 laps down, respectively. There is battling going on all throughout the field. Dylan Jones down pit road. Benefield down pit road as well. Those drivers coming in for their second trips. Only Friedage, Phillip, and Davis, the drivers who have yet to come down and make a pit stop tonight, at least up front. You've also got Kamer and Kaczynski a little bit further down.
And now as Lariah now tries to get one of his laps back here, I'm starting to get a little concerned on something where Friedage again needs some clean space. I think if he gets Sean Kalis to go by him, then I think we see him try and duck down. It's not simple as got a call, can go down whenever you can. If there's someone behind you, they're likely going to not realize it until the last moment. Grant Davis tried to come down. Apparently he had something happen on his pit execution in 24. He was one of the last cars not yet to pit.
Well, it's a tricky pit road, and I think he may have just missed it. We'll have to... I'm just taking a look back. I'm not noticing anything obvious, but Davis is certainly slow, and he's in this time. So maybe he just got crossed up and missed it. Yeah, but he's in this time. So he'll lose a little bit of time, but it could be worse. So he's at the back of the pack. He's going to have to go down back pit road, come around to the front. And there it is on the radio. Andrew Friedage pitting this time by from the race lead. Here he is at lap 158 with 42 laps to go. He's down for the first time.
What a long, long run to this race as Philip stretches another lap. Now, it's likely going to be Eberhard who cycles to the race lead. He has been blistering quick here and is now the only other car outside of Philip on the lead lap. So it's now his race to try and control at this point. It's also going to be important, though, Lariah caution is out.
With Andrew Friedage on pit road, and we have our first and only second yellow flag of the race. The 13 of Gary Sexton is around. Let's see what happened.
Now, Benefield just came out of the pits 5 laps ago, and I don't think he was expecting that big of a checkup. Ends up just contact with Sexton, spinning him around, and that is why you try and stay out as long as you can normally as a driver. Now, much of the field is pinned 1 or 2 laps down.
And there was the onboard look, but yeah, just trying to get the official number. I think only Agnew Phillip and Daniel Eberhard are on the lead lap, and what devastating timing for Andrew Faridas, Justin. We said he was probably staying out too late. Looks like he came down too early because he'll be trapped a lap down. This is basically a free pit stop for Agnew Phillip and Daniel Eberhardt. I don't think the 90's taken it, though, which I wouldn't understand because he should have tires available, Justin. He's been out there for 43 laps. Phillip's going to get tires here, presumably with only 2 cars on the lead lap. Start right alongside him and probably be in the catbird seat. We'll see.
You know what? You know why he's staying out here? If he stays out, yes, he's going to be on older tires. But everybody else in the field is pinned laps down. In other words, they can't get the wave around back. This absolutely hurts everybody else in the field with this, as on the bright side, at least there wasn't a tire puncture. Phillip just said over the radio, 14% left on his right rear tire. That's how close he was to popping a tire.
And that is after a run of 161 laps through 2 yellows. So Agnew Phillip comes down to the pit lane. Michael Laraya, for a moment on the lead lap, I believe he may have been the driver who was given the lucky dog, so it'll give us 3 on the lead lap, but you're right. Daniel Eberhardt, by staying out, will keep all the drivers 1 lap down, a lap down. So if both those race leaders had pitted, Sam Nieto, Kyle Trudell, Andrew Faridas, Joseph Tice, and Eric Stanford would have presumably stayed out to take the wave around, we'd have had at least 8 cars on the lead lap. So Daniel Eberhardt's decision keeps those drivers off, but I'm not sure if I run the logic, because I still think Agnew Phillip's going to run over him here with the fresh rubber. It's not like Daniel Eberhardt needs the second place to get points if he's racing for the win. I think, Justin, it's a good strategy, yes, to keep those guys a lap down. But if I'm Daniel Eberhardt, I don't care. I want my tires because I want to win. The only thing Daniel Eberhardt's fighting for is for 3 bonus points.
I think he isn't going to fight Phillip, but again, I think he's, thinking big picture here. If he lets all the drivers go back on the lead lap, he's likely getting damage repaired since his quarter panel's crushing a bit, and he has front nose damage. As we get to the light green for the cars to bunch back up once again, he's thinking almost big picture just about here, where would you rather have to fight Freenosh again, Laraya, once he gets through all the traffic, Stanford, etc., or would you like to just fight 1 or 2 cars? You pick the 1 or 2 cars.
So Adam Benefield claiming responsibility for the incident. He'll get an end of the longest line penalty. Not that it matters much, because he is 4 laps down and 18th with no front end. But alas, he does need to go a lap down, and he'll go to the end of the line for the restart. So there are 3 cars on the lead lap. Daniel Eberhardt with 47 lap-old tires on the inside, presumably not having pitted. Going to get passed very easily by Agnew Phillip on the outside on fresh rubber. Michael Laraya, the lucky dog, is back to the lead lap, but he is about behind a dozen cars or so worth of traffic. He's somebody who wants a yellow and would appreciate if this race had some more action. Green flag flies with 35 laps to go. It's Eberhardt in front, but for how long? Here comes the 94.
Yes, indeed, and that fresher grip is going to be shown right here. Eberhardt, if I was him, don't fight it. You're on much older tires at this point. You do that, you're likely going to get some help being spun around. But here's the thing, too. Some of these cars going to lap themselves if this ends up going to a decent run. If it ends up being caution, precaution, this works out right in the hands of the 90 and what he wanted, I think.
Phillip to the inside, new race leader. Here comes Faridas, though, trying to unlap himself. He gets around Eberhardt. That is not for position, but if he gets around the 94, then he would be the 4th car on the lead lap, and a yellow would put him right back in this race. To the inside of Phillip. He's better. He's got it. Faridas now back to the lead lap, which is big if and only if, I believe, we have a caution. He looks really good, Justin, but I don't think he catches back up in 31 laps without it.
Concern's going to be on the long run, how that car's going to handle with the damage. But still, Eberhard, knowing he's going to be much slower, trying to work on the top side, and there's the caution.
Perfect timing for Andrew Friedage, whereas the yellow before was literally the worst of possible timing, and he will get back to the lead lap because Steve Durham is around.
Yeah, the 10 machine got help from Gary Sexton. In fact, from behind, the rear weatherman basically got turned into 360 in what's been a rough run for one of the Aegis cars tonight. So let's take a look at this one. It's from behind where Sexton gives the bump. Sweep off the corner where Durham's been really trying to back it up in a lot of these sections and try and be more careful and make sure he doesn't tap the wall. But Sexton, much more quicker on apex off, just gives a love tap and into the wall goes Durham.
Comes back up, and fortunately that's where the pack of race cars ended, or he could have easily have been involved with some more drivers. And here we go, pit stops. Daniel Eberhard, who decided, there's the onboard, by the way, Gary Sexton, but late drama, pit road. Daniel Eberhard, who decided to not come down pit road last time, was showing pit road the entire time. Justin and Agnel Phillip made a late dive to pit road. He's going to come in for tires as well. Lariah stays out. He'll go to the race lead. Friedage in for tires also.
Joseph Tice as well. Well, you've got the lucky dog in all of this as well. Back to 5 cars on the lead lap. But I don't blame Phil for doing this, because if he stays on the racetrack, Eberhard likely wins this race and blasts right on by him after a few laps are in our belts. So this equalizes the tires. Yes, it uses up a set, but in turn, it's a gamble where you have to do it in this type of race tonight. You have to.
In and out for Agnel Phillip, and maybe that was the long con for Eberhard, was to save the tires. Granted, now I believe they may be out of tires. I think Phillip would be out of tires, and I think Eberhard would have one left. So that would help if that's true. But again, Eberhard didn't take them last time. I thought that was the wrong call, but he ends up staying down significant time. Justin, 31 seconds to get damage repairs. Also, Joseph Tice is the lucky dog. He'll go back to the lead lap, and all of a sudden there are 7 cars on the lead lap, maybe more.
Like I said, you don't want to necessarily stay on the racetrack with a damaged race car without fixing said damage. And that's what he did. Fixed the front nose a little bit more. Tried straightening out that rear quarter panel to make sure that car is in snap loose like it can be with Andrew Friedage. That's what Andrew did as well for some of his service, but not too much here. Still comes out second though. That's the big thing. And Stanford and Trudell, because of all those cars coming down for service, we may be able to get the wave around, as well as several others to get back to 1 and 2 down.
And just taking a look at Daniel Eberhard being shown for 31 seconds in the box, but I'm taking a look back. Maybe he did spend 31 seconds in the box. Yeah. Either way, he's still P2. Michael Lariah, who didn't pit, is going to go to the race lead. And we'll delay things one more time around to allow drivers to catch up for this one. But he is able to stay second. Michael Lariah, no tires. 13 laps old, Justin. It's not impossible. Could this decision for the track position be the upset?
There's actually a likely chance of this, because if you are good at defending here at Bristol, those tires can equalize out to the other cars, and in turn, that might be a smart call. The counterpoint, if it doesn't, and there's only a few cars on the lead lap still at that point, I would take the set if you're Lariah. Yes, it burns up an error one of those sets, but in turn, he'd have the fresher tires. So, in other words, this can go either way. I like the call from Lariah to try and be on the defensive here.
Some issues with some of the drivers towards the back of the pack, as well as Scott McClendon needs to get around a couple of drivers. So these drivers are trying to figure out the running order, Justin. And it's funny because with so many wave rounds, not just to get back to the lead lap, but with drivers to get just a lap back, 4 laps down to 3 and 3 laps down to 2 and so on and so forth. A lot of drivers are struggling to find where they belong, but I think we're good now. Maybe to the benefit of Lariah, 2 laps off of the restart, get shaved off, and we'll try it now. 22 laps to go at Bristol. Michael Lariah, old tires, just by a little bit, has stayed out. He'll go to the race lead. But Daniel Eberhardt, after being on the back foot now, he's in a very good position. By the way, I believe Agnew Phillip had some sort of a speeding penalty or some sort of a penalty, Justin, when he pitted. I think it was the unsafe pit entrance with that late dive in. He is at the end of the line, way off of the race leaders. Green flag in the air. Here we go. 22 laps left. Lariah leads.
And what a big boost there for Eberhardt off the corner. It's been happening all race. Drivers have been able to launch in and diamond it fairly well. Keep an eye on the 88. As long as that car doesn't chew up that right rear like I think it may, he might be able to do something in the bottom, since he's been one of the few all month, it seems here, to be able to actually make it stick for significant laps.
And a tough break, even more so for Agnew Phillip, who changed lanes before the restart. Again, already having a penalty from getting some sort of an infraction on pit road, getting tires. He gets a penalty for changing lanes on the restart. So he is forced to come down pit road, or he will not be scored. So Phillip's night has absolutely fallen apart, Justin. After no more than 10 laps to go, I thought he was primed to be a surprise winner.
I think so too, and unbelievable that stretch of bad luck, it seems, in this final few laps or so. Otherwise, he may be the man who we see up at the front here instead. This is going to be wild because Lariah, he has the ability, if he stays up top, to try and pinch, but at the same time, the bottom's been rubbered up very, very well tonight with how well these drivers have actually handled it here compared to some of the other races this week officially. So in other words, the ball's in his court to try and hold on for just 16 more laps.
Michael Lariah does not need to win this race to move on to the round of 12, but he would like to get a second race win on the season, and most importantly, get the 3 bonus points to start that next round. A race winner from way back in March at Homestead Miami Speedway, but he is trying to make about 13 lap older tires than Daniel Eberhardt worked to the end of the race, and the 90 car now breathing down his neck. 13 to go. Next time by, the 90's on the doorstep.
And it's going to be important what line each of these drivers choose here. It's looking like Eberhardt just trying to set it up, diamond it off, get the boost that he needs to dive it to the inside. If not, waiting for a moment, Lariah almost slips up, so to speak, to where then he can try and pry Lariah off the wall.
And they are up against the fence. The good news as well with the restarts is there's not a lot of lapped traffic. They may still catch some, but at least for the most part, these drivers are being given the opportunity to fight it out amongst themselves. Farinaj also closing. He's only 0.8 of a second back. I don't think he gets there in 10 laps unless it comes to fireworks between the cars first and second. Lariah, though, he's doing a good job at holding his own, maintaining about a car length and a half.
When they reach up to this traffic coming up through the road, it's going to be important to where that traffic is, because if it ends up boxing in either of these cars, that could be the deciding factor too. It isn't as thick, that's the bright side. But as long as Kalis ends up moving out of the way quickly, not going to be a factor. If it ends up, say, sticking up to the high line, that may be the chance for Eberhardt to then try and power to the outside and then try a similar maneuver what Sexton had tried earlier.
And it is Bristol. I mean, it is known for the bump and run, but just as I say, I don't think Farinaj was going to get there. He's got a real opportunity, at least for second. Now they have lap traffic. Kalis holding the bottom. May have checked up the Donnie of Eberhardt a little bit because that was the line that he was using for the last couple of laps. But the clean track's gone. If they get to McClendon about a half a straightaway away, then it is a whole onslaught of lapped cars. Farinaj looking for second, this time by 5 laps to go.
Saving the tires really well here, but once they get up to that cluster, that may determine who wins this race and how even the battle for second fares. Already some drivers trying to say they will go in specific lines. In other words, if they aren't predictable in where they're going to go, that may be the best chance Eberhard has to win this race now.
He needs a little bit more. I thought that when he got to him, he had enough time to be patient with it. They are going to get to the back of traffic. 3 laps to go this time by. They are bearing down on a dozen lapped cars. You're on board with Daniel Eberhard second. Lariah up the road, the race leader, and they're going to be in the thick of it coming to 2 to go.
And they're going to need to get through this quickly and cleanly here. If they get held up at all, especially Lariah, that's going to cost them. Both of them having to go up to the top line, but some of these cars just not able to get out of the way here. This is going to check up the leaders here.
There's nowhere to go. They're too wide. Ferninash to the inside for second. White flag in the air. Here comes Eberhard. 3 wide to the inside. McClendon into the outside wall. Here comes Eberhard to the inside. Lap traffic in front. Lariah gonna squeeze through and hang on. And Michael Lariah wins at Bristol.
And I think Daniel thought about the bump. But so dicey. Several of those cars, I think, nearly wrecked to get out of the way, Evan. But what a victory for Michael
putting
Lariah.
it into the wall to get out of the way. Steve Soa wrecking on the back straightaway. Eberhard on the quarter panel, a slice and dice by the 44. Michael Lariah had to give it all. Let's watch it again.
Yeah, and I thought right about here, once they got towards turn 1 especially, that was where this was going to become chaotic here with a potential pileup, because Lariah had to go. Eberhard nearly gave him a shot there. That, I think, is going to be somewhat
right
understandable. Here. Yes, and right there, more contact. That shuffles out Soa, and in turn, clears up just enough to hold on.
You could see that brief moment where Eberhard was on the quarter panel, just enough room for Lariah to snake through, and for the second time in 2020, he is a race winner. He'll pull up alongside his teammate Grant Davis, do the burnouts, and I think both those drivers may have been able to advance to the round of 12. What a job for Lariah. He'll be tied with Daniel Eberhard for the points lead as we kick off the round of 12 next week from Las Vegas. Let's take a look at tonight's full race results powered by Boosted. 9 of the top 10 were playoff drivers. Andrew Ferninash recovering for the third. You got Kyle Trudell, Joseph Tice through the top 5, along with Eric Stanford. Sam Nieto, the only non-playoff car, tucked into between David Washington, Rhett McBride, and Kyle Kamer.
11th spot tonight ends up going to Matthew Mara, 2 laps down with Grant Davis in P number 12. Decent run for him. See if it's enough for Daniel Scott. Able to get back up to 13th. That's the bright spot to his day. We'll see how things factor out. He finished in front of Kaczynski, Gary Sexton, Dylan Jones, and Adam Benefiel with some rough days, 3 and 4 laps down respectively. But Durham, Phillip 5 laps down, and Thomas George also 5 laps down in 20th.
And continuing on through, you see the rest of these drivers, rough nights, as about 25th on back don't finish this race. And Brian Chambliss, Justin, is going to be very interesting. Was 6th in the point standings coming into this race. 27th, though. May make this one a little bit too close for comfort as he looks to stay above the cut line and to move on to the next round. So look top to bottom at your boosted.club full race results. We'll take a quick opportunity to step aside, and when we come back, we'll talk with race winner Michael Lariah. Move it on to the round of 12. You're watching the 2020 Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series powered by Boosted. Post-race is next on RaceSpot TV.
The field is rolling on the back straightaway.
Get ready. This is going to be tight. Out of turn 4, ladies and gentlemen. The All-American 400 is underway.
Got to be careful. The bumps here can get you every time. Entering the corner, exiting the corner.
And back live for the virtual Bristol Motor Speedway, where RaceSpot TV's coverage of the 2020 RealSimRacing Full Throttle Cup Series is powered by Boosted, the place where gamers and creators go to monetize digitally. Their team will build you a totally free e-commerce store and help get sponsorships for those looking to build their brand online. Boosted is the #1 sponsorship platform for esports influencers. Join their team and visit boosted.club for more information. Well, back live after a thrilling Boosted night race at Bristol, where Michael Araya is in victory lane, back in the RaceSpot TV booth alongside Justin Prince. My name is Evan Pasoko. Let's chat with the driver of the number 44 machine, Michael Araya, in victory lane for a second time in 2020. We'll get him on the radio now. And Michael, congratulations on the win in this one. Started P2, you win the race, but before we get to the story of how you got there, final 5 laps. Looked like you're pulling away, car length and a half, but that lap traffic kept getting bigger and bigger, and man, what a final half mile it turned out to be.
That was incredible last 20 laps or so. I mean, I was trying to drive straight out the windshield as much as I could without looking behind me there, because I knew Daniel was right there, and I had to hit my marks perfectly. And I felt pretty good until that cluster of lap traffic came up with about 5 to go. I'm like, oh boy, here we go. And I was just praying that I made the right moves getting through that traffic, and man, it was way too close for comfort there. But on the last turn there, I was committed to the top, and I was able to get just enough of a launch center off to clear Daniel, who was running the bottom, and come away with the win.
It looked like before that, the battle was going to be the Daniel Eberhardt-Magnell Phillips show. They kind of exchanged opposite strategies, in which Eberhardt didn't pit, Phillip did, and then they both kind of played a game of chicken later, which ended up with a penalty to Phillip, who ends up dropping way down in the finishing results of this. At this point, for a moment you're a lap down, then you get a lucky dog, you get back into the conversation, you're sitting from, 20 cars deep or whatever, and then to get back up there, I mean, what was this one like top to bottom, to go from no yellows to a bunch of them, and kind of the highs and lows on route to your second win of the year?
Well, the beginning of the race there, leading up to the first caution, man, it was something else. Within the first 20 laps or so, I was shocked how well the bottom groove was working. Andrew, he jumped down there pretty quick, and then I saw Agnell do the same, and they were making good time down there. I think it just came down to, we have close to a full session, and just people were working in that groove during practice, and it really had some speed tonight. It was really nice for a change, being able to search around the track and try to find things, and just being able to move around for once. But yeah, leading up to that point, I felt pretty comfortable with my speed, but once Andrew got the lead there, man, he was doing a really good job getting around lap traffic. And I know Agnell and we got stuck behind a cluster of 5 cars, and we couldn't get by him for 30 laps. And when that happened, Andrew just checked out, and that made it really tough for Agnell and shot to win. We needed a caution at that point. Luckily, we got it, and then after that, it was just kind of chaos. Lucky breaks there, and just able to position myself with about 30 to go to be up in the top 3. That was key to control the race, and I just had to execute, make sure I got a good restart there, and luckily I got enough of a jump, and I was able to just rim ride and get that good launch out the corners, and I think that's kind of what sealed the deal. But man, that lap traffic at the end, that was just insane. I gotta thank Daniel for at least, I mean, he was trying, but man, he really could have wrecked me at the end there, but he didn't. He raced me as hard as possible without getting me out, so I'll thank him for that.
Well, it looks like, the win wasn't necessary to get you into the next round, but with it, you become one of now just 5 drivers with multiple wins this season and set an RSR high this year for 18 top 10 finishes in 23 attempts. So as we get set to head off to the round of 12 now, and you get set for another 3-race stint, starting with Las Vegas, followed by Talladega, and then the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval, how well positioned do you think you are to keep this thing going?
Vegas, I feel really good about. I feel like I'm definitely going to be a car that's going to be in contention for the win there. I feel like that race is going to be key as far as trying to build up a points gap, because Talladega and the Roval, you just don't know what's going to happen there. So I view Vegas as almost kind of like a must-win race. Certainly want to get as many points as possible in that race moving forward. Talladega, I feel like I'm starting to get better with the plate racing. I feel like I kind of know what to do as far as positioning myself to try to at least survive later on into the race and get a better finish. But man, you just don't know. And the Roval, it could be chaos, but I feel really comfortable with my road racing, and I feel like if I can qualify in the top 5 there, hopefully things will get spread out a little bit and just kind of be able to control my own destiny. I'm hoping to advance out of the next round.
Well, we wish you the best of luck as you head off to the round of 12. You'll also get that 3-point bonus to kick it all off by getting a win in the round of 16, Michael. But we appreciate, as I look through the field here, we appreciate you racing with us on Monday nights. Congratulations on the win. And hopefully for your sake, we'll be chatting again next week.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Your race winner tonight to In the Boosted Club night race at Bristol Motor Speedway. And Justin, I'll pass things off now down to you, to the driver who was oh so close in that final corner, Daniel Eberhardt, a race winner last week and a P2 tonight. You're talking about the driver of the 90.
Yes, indeed, Daniel Eberhardt, a heck of a run tonight. Now join us in the broadcast booth. Daniel, first things first, talk us through those final few laps from your perspective, because you came so close to winning yet again in this car.
Holy smokes, man. That was the funnest race I've ever been in at Bristol. I mean, green flag pit stops, you don't never see them, all of that. And when I was catching lap traffic with Lariah, and then I seen Drew just had the bottom just going, I don't know how in the world, but he was the fastest car all night. Give it to him, hands down. Got screwed once again, but that's racing, and that's racing in the series. It is just like that, hammer down the whole time with these guys. And I was trying to move Lariah up a little bit out of 3 and 4 coming to the checkered. I think the 75 got wrecked, 22 wrecked, 10 was in the way. It was just all heck breaking loose in front of us, and I was trying to move him just a little bit, but I wasn't going to wreck him trying to win it. It's not the way I want to do it. And, come Phoenix, it might be the same way, and might be roles reversed. He might be running second, and I might be running first. So he might not run me, that way. So maybe it'll come back in better terms.
Good point on that one, absolutely. But tonight was a very competitive race overall, especially with the traffic. But now, the next round of the playoffs, Las Vegas, Talladega, the Roval. The win actually puts you just 2 points behind Andrew Freenosh in the standings at the top of the board into the round 12. Lariah 23 points back. What's your approach going to be like for the next round, especially since Lariah said just prior to you jumping in here that he felt Las Vegas was the must-win for him?
Oh, for sure. Really, to be honest with you, me and Andrew just got to finish races. I feel pretty confident we can do that and move on easily to the next round. I don't see, being he's 25 points ahead of the field and I'm 23 ahead of third. That's a lot of points, and unless you're wrecking out 2 races, you're, pretty much golden. And survive Talladega and run the Roval and Las Vegas, and if we can get lucky and win one of them 3 or a couple of them, it'll be great. But just finish. That's the name of the game right now, and it's going to be real tight all the way to the bottom. The last race, I really feel like we have a good shot to make it. I don't know what the third round of racetracks it is, but it's going to be hectic the whole time.
Indeed. Overall, who would you like to thank after what was an exciting yet possibly hectic finish with all that traffic right in front of you guys at this finish?
I got to thank all my teammates over there at Sim Racing Team, or whatever we want to call it. They're great people. I love them to death. Andrew, Dave, Eric, Sean, Kalis, especially him for sponsoring the race car. And also got to give a shout out to my fiance. She, I didn't think I was going to make it tonight. She shot a 8-point buck in the woods, and we were hauling tail, and I know she was hanging on for dear life in the passenger seat, so I got to thank her. I got to thank the good Lord above and my grandma, who sits in the other room enjoying every race and enjoying you guys, putting on the show for us, and so brings better coverage of the races. And also Boosted for sponsoring the series, and thank you, Evan, for everything you've done for the series.
This is Justin, but thank you very much for the time, Daniel.
Thank you.
Daniel Eberhardt, P2. I feel like we do sound a lot somewhere alike, but Andrew, at the very least, I believe he recognizes my voice at least. He's now in P3 and joins me as well. Andrew, you were a dominant car very early, and then the chaos started. What was it like in that car once things started spiraling with about 50 to go?
Yeah, we were just kind of out front, working our way through lap traffic, and I have to say that was probably the most fun race I had on iRace. To just, be able to go high, low through lap traffic. We were having a really long run, and I don't really know what happened. We were kind of just minding our own business. Lap car came, I think it was a 13, and gave us a little bump. From there, it just, especially in the short run, it felt like we lost speed on exit. So I think if we had a few more laps, we might have been able to get there, because we were okay once the tires went away. But that's kind of what happened. And strategy-wise, I didn't know where to pit until we ran out of gas or what. So I know I started losing the rear tires. That's why I brought it down, and that damage wasn't helping either.
Yeah, Phillips said 14% left on his right rear, and it's been a tendency this week in official racing where if you hit that back end of the car and crush that quarter panel on the right side, you're likely slipping and sliding. Unfortunately, it seemed to be that case, but you did eventually find yourself back in the lead lap. You mentioned the speed late in the run. What was your perspective to where you've seen all that traffic build up and you were catching and nearly took back second?
Yeah, I was wishing there was another 10 laps. They got out there, and like I said, when we were coming off the corner, even when I was on that high line, it just felt like they had a mile an hour or two, and I'm sure that's, just having the rear end broken a little bit. But we started getting lap traffic. I was really interested. I was almost a fan at that point, because they were sitting there side by side, and we're relatively within half a second of each other, and you don't know where to go. You don't know what these guys are gonna do, and as a fan, I hope you enjoyed that, because that was a heck of a last 2 laps there.
Indeed. Want to ask you this. Eberhardt feels like all you and him need to do are finish races. You're still the points leader for the reset for the round of 12. Is that kind of the approach you have, or what is your plan of attack for the round of 12?
Yeah, I'm not really sure what the schedule is, but it's just more than half the field is going to get it on points. So you kind of have to count on that. We've done everything right these last 2 weeks. We led the most laps both races. We had big leads, but you can see what happens. Sometimes tire strategy or you get damage from a lap car. It's just you got to salvage the bad races and you got to close the good races, which we haven't been able to do yet. So that's kind of the plan, is just stay consistent, keep doing what we've done the last 2 weeks, and we got to learn how to close these things.
Indeed. Before we let you go, anyone you want to thank before you now put all your focus to the Road to Pro side, since the final race is also tomorrow night?
Yeah, gonna need a win there to kind of get back in that. So I just want to say thanks to Lowline. We've had a good year. It's been up and down over there, but they do everything with the Road to Pro side. David Washington, he taught me everything on this game. He still helps out a lot. Without him, wouldn't even be this far. All the fans, I hope we put on a good show. That was so much fun from the car. I hope we, did it justice on the broadcast. You guys for broadcasting. Best league on this simulation here. I say it every week. And all the drivers. I mean, that was a ton of fun. We were going through lap cars, and we didn't have a caution for 150 laps. That's crazy at Bristol.
Yeah, one of the longest runs I've ever seen personally at this track, outside of maybe a Open in the spring. Or that. Congratulations on the run. You'll 124 laps in the end.
Have a good night, guys.
You too. That's Andrew Freenosh, P3 tonight, Evan.
Well, let's take a look now and talk about what the points are coming out of this race as the top 12 move on. And as I look at it on my screen now, Justin, I want to say, it comes down, again, with the bottom 4 being eliminated. Brian Chambliss, I talked about that big drop that he had. He stays in. Again, this is unofficial. Still have to go through and check it all out, but 99%, this is how it's going to look. Chambliss drops 6 spots to the cut line, but still finishes 12th. Brian Chambliss is going to advance to the round of 12. Kyle Kamer misses it out by 2 points in a tie with Daniel Scott. And then also Rhett McBride, he misses it by 12. And again, we talked about Jared Bogard missing the last 2 weeks based on suspension. The big thing that jumps out to me, though, is Daniel Scott it's kind of something that we don't talk about, but you notice the windshield banners and stuff on the cars. Daniel Scott has not had those decals on the car. They are required. It is a 1-point penalty every week, which is really just made to encourage drivers. Is kind of an annoying thing. I'm gonna lose a point. I should, update that for the series. That's 3 points over these last 3 races. If he doesn't get those 3 penalty points, he's in by 1. So something that wasn't even designed to be a real penalty per se. It's just to be, an incentive. Keeps Daniel Scott out of the round of 12. So I think he'll be kicking himself over that, and Brian Chambliss is going to breathe a huge sigh of relief after a disastrous night tonight.
Yeah, and it just shows if you really want to compete for a championship, you have to take things seriously. You have to put in the work. You have to be able to make sure you have all the steps, including those prerequisites for even how the car's designed. It's not just as simple as, oh, hey, I can only do a couple things here and there, maybe run 10 laps of practice and win a championship. You have to put in the preparation. You have to do everything you need to be able to compete. And in the end, in turn, you said it yourself. That doesn't happen. He moves on even though he had a disastrous round. And now, this is a round where anything can happen because the mile and a halfs, a lot of drivers have been comfortable there. That could be interesting to see who comes out there. But tracks like Talladega in the Roval could be wild cards for who can move on there.
The toss-up, it's going to be exciting, and we hope that you stay with us here on RaceSpot TV and the iRacing Esports Network through the rest of it. But at least for now, that's it for us here tonight from Bristol, and that's it for us on the round of 16. So on behalf of the entire team at RaceSpot TV and RealSimRacing, along with your broadcast crew tonight, for our producer downstairs, our Junior Kakipati, for Justin Prince, and myself, Evan Pasoko, I want to thank you for tuning in and congratulate Michael Lariah, as well as his 11 fellow competitors that are moving on in the quest for the Full Throttle Cup. We are back 1 week's time, Monday, September the 28th, from the virtual Las Vegas Motor Speedway. That race and every race of the 2020 Real Sim Racing Full Throttle Cup Series playoffs can be found exclusively here on RaceBot TV and the iRacing Esports Network. Until next time, good night from Thunder Valley.